Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a new law in Sri Lanka that's really shaking up how courtrooms operate. It's the Code of Criminal Procedure Amendment Act, and it's dragging the entire justice system, kicking and screaming, into the digital age. So just imagine for a second, what if you're a suspect and there's a serious threat to your life if you show up to court? Or what if you're a key witness in a case, but you live halfway across the world? How is justice supposed to work then? Well, this new law in Sri Lanka is designed to tackle these exact problems, making the whole legal process safer and way more accessible for everyone.
Okay, so here's the game plan. First, we're going to talk about why justice is going remote in the first place. Then, we'll look at what this means for an accused person, and for witnesses who might be testifying from anywhere on the planet. After that, and this is super important, we'll dig into the safeguards built into the system. And finally, we'll wrap up by looking at what this new digital era really means for the courts. Let's jump in.
So why the big change right now? Well, this whole amendment is basically a response to the modern world. I mean, think about it. A global pandemic can literally shut everything down. Or personal security threats can make a simple trip to the courthouse a life or death situation. This law uses technology to find a way around those kinds of obstacles.
The core idea here is actually pretty simple, but it's incredibly powerful. Just use technology to make sure the wheels of justice don't grind to a halt. And what that means for an ordinary person is that your case can move forward safely and efficiently, without getting held up by things that are completely out of your control.
Okay, so let's get specific. How does this actually affect someone who's been accused of a crime? Let's break down these new rules for appearing from a distance and see how they're supposed to protect a person's safety and their basic rights at the same time. Now, it's really crucial to get this. This is not a free-for-all. Appearing remotely isn't the new normal. It's a very specific tool that a magistrate can only use when bringing someone to court in person would create a huge problem or, put them in real danger.
And the reasons listed in the law cover a really wide range of situations, and they're all about safety and stability. For instance, if there's a credible threat to someone's life, they can appear remotely. Same thing if bringing them to court might actually spark a riot or public unrest. The rules even account for things like a pandemic, and get this, protecting someone's rehab process from being disrupted.
But it's not just about the accused. This law totally transforms how witnesses can give their testimony. For anyone who's moved overseas but is still a critical part of a case, this is an absolute game changer. It means their evidence can finally be heard without the enormous cost and hassle of flying them back.
Okay, so here's the fancy legal term for it: contemporaneous audiovisual linkage. It sounds complicated, right? But all it really means is a secure live video feed where everybody can see and hear each other in real time. Basically, this tech turns any place, whether it's an embassy abroad or just an office in another city, into a virtual extension of the courtroom itself.
And look, this isn't just some casual video chat. The whole process is really structured. First, you have to formally apply to the court. If the judge says yes, the court then appoints a commissioner. This is an official who actually goes to the remote location to supervise the testimony and make sure everything is done correctly, which guarantees the whole thing is fair and legally solid.
Now, with all this new technology comes a huge question, right? How does the law make sure to protect the fundamental rights of the accused? How do you guarantee that this tech is serving justice instead of undermining it?
Well, the system isn't just about making things convenient. It's all about striking a very careful balance. The law is packed with checks and balances to make sure that while we're integrating all this new tech, the core principles of justice are never, ever forgotten.
And this chart is where you can really see those safeguards in action. The law draws a very firm line in the sand. For the most critical moments, like a person's very first appearance in court, or, and this is so important, if there are any allegations of torture or assault, then physical presence is absolutely mandatory. No exceptions. That's to make sure a judge can see the person with their own eyes when it matters most. And get this, here's another huge protection for people. It's called the 48-hour rule. A magistrate is legally required to personally visit a detainee at their place of detention within 48 hours of them appearing remotely. This isn't a phone call. It's an in-person, face-to-face check to make absolutely certain their rights are being protected.
And all of this just goes to show you that the core legal rights are still front and center. Appearing remotely doesn't mean you lose your right to a lawyer. It doesn't mean you lose the right to see and hear everything that's happening in your own case, or the crucial ability to talk privately with your lawyer. Your lawyer can even be right there with you during that 48-hour welfare check from the magistrate.
So let's zoom out for a second and pull all this together. What's the big picture takeaway from this massive legal shift? What does this new era for the courts really look like?
At the end of the day, what this does is build a justice system that's more resilient and a lot more accessible for everyone. Whether the accused, a witness, or a victim, it means justice can be served more safely, more efficiently, and without being derailed when showing up in person just isn't an option.
And if you want to know just how big of a deal this is, check out this quote taken directly from the law. It says that any place using this video link shall be deemed to be part of the court. Think about that for a second. It legally expands the very definition of a courtroom. For the duration of that testimony, a secure room in an embassy overseas is, in the eyes of the law, a Sri Lankan court.
So this law is a massive leap forward, no doubt. But it also leaves us with this big, lingering question for the future. As our courtrooms all over the world go more and more digital, how do we make sure that technology is always serving justice? The real work ahead is making sure our commitment to fairness and human rights evolves just as fast as the tools we use. Thanks for joining me for this explainer.